Stefanie Maria. Steffi Graf is a former world number 1 German tennis player. Graf won 22 Grand Slam singles titles, second among male and female players only to Margaret Court's 24. Her 22 singles titles mark the record for most major wins by a tennis player since the introduction of the Open era in 1968, and is the only player to win at least 4 singles titles at each Grand Slam. In 1988, she became the first and only tennis player to achieve the calendar year Golden Slam by winning all 4 Grand Slam singles titles and the Olympic gold medal in the same calendar year. Graf was ranked world number 1 by the Women's Tennis Association for a record 377 total weeks, the longest period for which any player, male or female, has held the number 1 ranking since the WTA and the Association of Tennis Professionals began issuing rankings. She won 107 singles titles, which ranks her third on the WTA's all-time list after Martina Navratilova and Chris Evert. A notable feature of Steffi Graf's game was her versatility across all playing surfaces, having won each of the 4 majors at least 4 times, the only player to do so, and she is best known for her great footwork and for her powerful forehand drive. Graf won 6 French Open singles titles and 7 Wimbledon singles titles. She is the only singles player to have achieved a calendar year Grand Slam while playing on 4 different types of tennis courts. Graf reached 13 consecutive Grand Slam singles finals, from the 1987 French Open through to the 1990 French Open, winning 9 of them. She won 5 consecutive majors, and 7 majors out of 8, in 2 calendar years. She reached a total of 31 Grand Slam singles finals, third overall behind Evert and Navratilova. Graf is regarded by many to be the greatest female tennis player of all time. Billie Jean King said in 1999, "Steffi is definitely the greatest women's tennis player of all time." Navratilova herself has included Graf on her list of great players. In December 1999, Graf was named the greatest female tennis player of the 20th century by a panel of experts assembled by the Associated Press. Tennis writer Steve Flink, in his book The Greatest Tennis Matches of the 20th Century, named her as the best female player of the 20th century. In March 2012, Tennis Channel picked Graf as the greatest female tennis player ever in their list of 100 greatest tennis players of all time. Graf retired in 1999 while she was ranked world number 3. She married former world number 1 men's tennis player Andre Agassi in October 2001. The couple have 2 children, Jaden Gill and Giselle. Steffi Graf was inducted into the Tennis Hall of Fame in 2004. Biography: born June 14, 1969, in Mannheim, Baden-Württemberg, West Germany, Steffi Graf was introduced to tennis by her father Peter Graf, a car and insurance salesman and aspiring tennis coach, who taught his 3-year-old daughter how to swing a wooden racket in the family's living room. She began practicing on a court at the age of 4 and played in her first tournament at 5. She soon began winning junior tournaments with regularity, and in 1982 she won the European Championships 12s and 18s. Early career: Steffi Graf played in her first professional tournament in October 1982 at Stuttgart, Germany. She lost her first round match 6-4, 6-0 to Tracy Austin, a 2-time U.S. Open champion and former world number 1 player. At the start of her first full professional year in 1983, Steffi was just 13 years old and ranked world number 124. She won no titles during the next 3 years, but her ranking climbed steadily to world number 98 in 1983, number 22 in 1984, and number 6 in 1985. In 1984, she first gained international attention when she almost upset the 10th seed, Jodie of the United Kingdom, in a 4th-round centre court match at Wimbledon. In August, as a 15-year-old representing West Germany, she won the tennis demonstration event at the 1984 Olympic Games in Los Angeles. No medals were awarded as this was not an official Olympic event. Graf's schedule was closely controlled by her father, who limited her play so that she would not burn out. In 1985, for instance, she played only 10 events leading up to the U.S. Open, whereas another up-and-coming star, Gabriela Sabatini of Argentina, who was a year younger than Graf, played 21. Peter also kept a tight rein on Steffi's personal life. Social invitations on the tour were often declined as Graf's focus was kept on practicing and match play. Working with her father and then coach Pavel Slow 3/4 eel, Graf typically practiced for up to 4 hours a day, often heading straight from airports to practice courts. This narrow focus meant that Graf, already shy and retiring by nature, made few friends on the tour in her early years, but it led to a steady improvement in her play. In 1985 and early 1986, Graf emerged as the top challenger to the dominance of Martina Navratilova and Chris Evert. During that period, she lost 6 times to Evert and 3 times to Navratilova, all in straight sets. She did not win a tournament but consistently reached tournament finals and semi-finals, with the highlight being her semi-final loss to Navratilova at the US Open. On April 13, 1986, Graf won her first WTA tournament and beat Evert for the first time in the final of the Family Circle Cup in Hilton Head, South Carolina. Graf then won her next 3 tournaments at Amelia Island, Charleston, and Berlin, culminating in a 6-2, 6-3 defeat of Navratilova in the final of the latter. Illness caused her to miss Wimbledon, and an accident where she broke a toe several weeks later also curtailed her momentum. She returned to win a small tournament at Maha just before the US Open where, in one of the most anticipated matches of the year, she encountered Navratilova in a semi-final. The match was played over 2 days with Navratilova finally winning after saving 3 match points 6-1, 6-7, 7-6. Graf then won 3 consecutive indoor titles at Tokyo, Zawan Quarterich, and Brighton, before once again contending with Navratilova at the season-ending Virginia Slims Championships in New York City. This time, Navratilova beat Graf 7-6, 6-3, 6-2. Breakthrough year, 1987, Steffi Graf's Grand Slam tournament breakthrough came in 1987. She started the year strongly, with 6 tournament victories heading into the French Open, the highlight being at the tournament in Miami, where she defeated Martina Navratilova in a semi-final and Chris Evert in the final and conceded only 20 games in the 7 rounds of the tournament. In the French Open final, Steffi defeated Martina, who was the world number 1, 6-4, 4-6, 8-6 after beating Sabatini in a 3-set semi-final. Graf then lost to Navratilova 7-5, 6-3 in the Wimbledon final, her first loss of the year. However, in the Federation Cup final in Vancouver, Canada, 3 weeks later, she defeated Evert easily 6-2, 6-1. The US Open ended anticlimactically as Navratilova defeated Graf in the final 7-6, 6-1. Unprecedented calendar year Golden Slam, 1988, Graf started 1988 by winning the Australian Open, defeating Chris Evert in the final 6-1, 7-6. Graf did not lose a set during the tournament and lost a total of only 29 games. Graf lost twice to Sabatini during the spring, once on hard courts in Boca Raton, Florida, and once on clay at Amelia Island, Florida. Graf, however, won the tournament in San Antonio, Texas and retained her title in Miami, where she once again defeated Evert in the final. Graf then won the tournament in Berlin, losing only 12 games in 5 matches. At the French Open, Graf successfully defended her title by defeating Natasha Zvereva 6-0, 6-0 in a 32-minute final. That was the first double bagel in a major final since 1911. Natasha, who had eliminated Martina Navratilova in the 4th round, won only 13 points in the match. Next came Wimbledon, where Martina Navratilova had won 6 straight titles. Steffi was trailing Martina in the final 7-5, 2-0 before winning the match 5-7, 6-2, 6-1. She then won tournaments in Hamburg and Maha. At the US Open, Steffi beat Sabatini in a 3-set final to win the calendar year Grand Slam, a feat previously performed by only two other women, Maureen Connolly Brinker in 1953 and Margaret Court in 1970. Steffi Graf then defeated Sabatini 6-3, 6-3 in the gold medal match at the Olympic Games in Seoul and achieved what the media had dubbed the Golden Slam. Steffi also won her only Grand Slam doubles title that year at Wimbledon, partnering Sabatini and picked up a women's doubles Olympic bronze medal. At the year-ending Virginia Slims Championships, Graf hampered by illness was upset by Pam Shriver, only her third loss of the year. She was named the 1988 BBC Overseas Sports Personality of the Year. New challenges and personal challenges. 1989. Speculation was rife at the beginning of 1989 about the possibility of Graf winning another Grand Slam. Some noted observers, such as Margaret Court, suggested that Graf could achieve the feat a couple more times. And the year began as expected, with Graf extending her Grand Slam tournament winning streak to 5 events at the Australian Open, defeating Helena Swiatkova in the final. Her 6-3, 6-0 defeat of Argentina's Gabriela Sabatini in a semi-final was described by veteran observer Ted Tinling as probably the best tennis I've seen. He went on to add, "Then I saw what Steffi did to Sabatini at the Australian Open this year, and that was it. She is better than them all." Graf followed this with easy victories in her next 4 tournaments at Washington, D.C., San Antonio, Texas, Boca Raton, Florida, and Hilton Head, South Carolina. The Washington, D.C. tournament was notable because Graf won the first 20 points of the final against Zina Garrison. In the Boca Raton final, Graf lost the only set she conceded to Chris Evert in their final 7 matches. In the subsequent Amelia Island final on clay, Graf lost her first match of the year to Sabatini but returned to European clay with easy victories at Hamburg and Berlin. Graf's Grand Slam tournament winning streak ended at the French Open, where 17-year-old Spaniard Arantxa Ńchz Vicario beat Graf in 3 sets. Graf served for the match at 5-3 in the third set but lost the game at love and won only 3 more points in the match. She had struggled to beat Monica Seles in their semi-final 6-3, 3-6, 6-3. Graf, however, recovered to defeat Martina Navratilova 6-2, 6-7, 6-1 in the Wimbledon final after defeating Monica Seles 6-0, 6-1 in a 4th-round match, Arantxa Ńchz Vicario in a quarter-final, and Chris Evert in a semi-final. Graf warmed up for the U.S. Open with easy tournament victories in San Diego and Mahia. In her semi-final match at the U.S. Open, Steffi Graf defeated Sabatini 3-6, 6-4, 6-2. In the final, Martina Navratilova led 6-3, 4-2 before Graf rallied to win 3-6, 7-5, 6-1 for her 3rd Grand Slam singles title of the year. Victories at ZAR 1 Quarter Rich and Brighton preceded the Virginia Slims Championships, where Graf cemented her top-ranked status by beating Navratilova in the final 6-4, 7-5, 2-6, 6-2. Graf ended 1989 with an 86-2 match record and the loss of only 12 sets. 1990, Graf defeated Mary Jo Fernandez in the final of the Australian Open, which was her 8th Grand Slam singles title in the last 9 she contested. Her winning streak continued with victories in Tokyo, Amelia Island, and Hamburg. In Berlin, she extended her unbeaten streak to 66 matches before losing the final to Monica Seles, 6-4, 6-3. While the Berlin tournament was being played, the largest circulation German tabloid, Bild, ran a story about an alleged scandal involving Graf's father. The difficulty of answering questions about the matter came to a head at a Wimbledon press conference, where Graf broke down in tears. Wimbledon authorities then threatened to immediately shut down any subsequent press conferences where questions about the issue were asked. Whether this scandal affected Graf's form is open to debate. In an interview with Stern magazine in July 1990, Graf stated, "I could not fight as usual. Graf again lost to Monica Seles in the final of the French Open 7-6, 6-4. Seles was behind 2-6 in the first set tiebreaker, but then came back to win 6 points in a row and take the set. At Wimbledon, Graf lost in the semi-finals to Zina Garrison, who with this victory broke Graf's string of 13 consecutive major finals. After victories in Montreal and San Diego, Steffi reached the US Open final, where she lost in straight sets to Sabatini. Graf won 4 indoor tournaments after the US Open, including a pair of straight set wins over Sabatini in the finals of ʻgʁaf Quarterich and Worcester. Although Sabatini got the best of Steffi in the semi-finals of the season-ending Virginia Slims Championships, Steffi still finished the year as the top-ranked player. 1991, a mixture of injury problems, personal difficulties, and loss of form made 1991 a tough year for Graf. Seles established herself as the new dominant player on the women's tour, winning the Australian Open, French Open, and US Open and, in March, ending Graf's record 186 consecutive weeks hold on the world #1 ranking. Graf briefly regained the top ranking after winning at Wimbledon but lost it again after her loss to Navratilova at the US Open. Graf lost an Australian Open quarter-final to Jana Novotná, the first time she did not reach the semi-finals of a Grand Slam singles tournament since the 1986 French Open. She then lost to Sabatini in her next 3 tournaments before winning the US Margaret Court Championships in San Antonio, beating Monica Seles in the final. After losing a 5th straight time to Sabatini in Amelia Island, Florida, Steffi once again defeated Monica in the Hamburg final. Following her tournament victory in Berlin, Graf suffered one of the worst defeats of her career in a French Open semi-final where she won only 2 games against Arantxa Nchez Vicario and lost her first 6-0 set since 1984. At Wimbledon, however, Steffi captured her 3rd women's crown, this time at Sabatini's expense. Sabatini served for the match twice, and was 2 points away from her first Wimbledon title. After breaking Sabatini's serve to even the 3rd set at 6-6, Steffi got rid of Sabatini by winning the next 2 games to take the match 6-4, 3-6, 8-6. Martina Navratilova then defeated Steffi Graf 7-6, 6-7, 6-4 in a US Open semi-final, the first time she had beaten Steffi in 4 years. Graf then won Leipzig, with her 500th career victory coming in a quarter-final against Judith Isner. After winning 2 more indoor tournaments at ʻgʁaf Quarterich and Brighton, she failed once again in the Virginia Slims Championships, losing her quarter-final to Jana Novotná. Soon after, she split with her longtime coach, Pavel Slow 3/4 eel. 1992, a bout of rubella forced Graf to miss the first major event of 1992, the Australian Open. Her year continued indifferently with losses in 3 of her first 4 tournaments, including a semi-final loss to Jana Novotná in Chicago. It was Steffi's 2nd consecutive loss to Jana, and dating back to their 1991 Australian Open quarter-final match, Jana had won 3 of their last 5 meetings. At Boca Raton, Florida, Steffi Graf reached her first final of the year, where she faced Conquita Martinez for the title. In their 5 previous head-to-head matches, Steffi had defeated Conquita each time. Even though Conquita won the opening set, Steffi went on to prevail 3-6, 6-2, 6-0. Steffi Graf lost twice to Gabriela Sabatini in the early spring at the Lipton International and the Bausch and Lomb Championships. However, the Bausch and Lomb loss would be Steffi's final loss to Sabatini, winning her next, and last, 8 matches against Sabatini. Victories at Hamburg and Berlin prepared her for the French Open, where she defeated Arantxa in the semi-finals after losing the first set 6-0. Steffi Graf then renewed her rivalry with Monica Seles in the final, which Monica won 10-8 in the 3rd set. Monica won the match on her 5th match point. Steffi came within 2 points of winning the match a few games earlier. At Wimbledon, after struggling through early round 3-setters against lowly ranked Marion de Swart and Patty Fendai, she easily defeated Natasha Zvereva in a quarter-final, Sabatini in a semi-final, and Monica Seles in the final 6-2, 6-1, with Monica playing in almost complete silence because of widespread media and player criticism of her grunting. Steffi then won all 5 of her Fed Cup matches, helping Germany defeat Spain in the final by defeating ๊gʁaf Vicario 6-4, 6-2. At the Olympic Games in Barcelona, Graf lost to Jennifer Capriati in the final and claimed the silver medal. At the US Open, Steffi was upset in a quarter-final by ๊gʁaf 7-6, 5, 6-3. 4 consecutive indoor tournament victories in the autumn improved her year, but for the 3rd consecutive year, she failed to win the Virginia Slims Championships, where she lost in the first round to Lori McNeil. Second period of dominance, 1993, Monica Seles beat Graf in 3 sets in the final of the Australian Open 4-6, 6-3, 6-2. The burgeoning rivalry between them was then cut short. During a quarter-final match between Seles and Magdalena Maleeva in Hamburg, Seles was stabbed between the shoulder blades by a mentally ill German fan of Graf, ~1/4 Nter Parch. He claimed that he committed the attack to help Graf reclaim the world #1 ranking, which he did on June 7, 1993. More than 2 years elapsed before Seles competed again. In the absence of Seles, Graf won 3 of 4 Grand Slam events. It took some time, however, for Graf to separate herself from her challengers, with 4 losses in her first 6 tournaments of the year, 2 to ๊gʁaf Vicario and 1 each to Seles and the 36-year-old Martina Navratilova. She struggled at the tournament in Berlin where she lost a 6-0 set to the unheralded Sabine Hack before defeating Mary Jo Fernandez and Sabatini in 3-set matches to claim her 7th title there in 8 years. Nor was she at her best at the French Open but still managed to win her first title there since 1988 with a 3-set victory over Mary Jo Fernandez in the final. The win elevated Graf to the world #1 ranking for the first time in 22 months. At Wimbledon, Steffi defeated Jana Novotná to win her 3rd consecutive, and 5th overall, ladies title. In the 3rd and deciding set, Jana had a point to go up 5-1 on her serve. After breaking Jana's serve, Steffi won the next 4 games to take the match 7-6, 1-6, 6-4. Graf had an injured right foot during this tournament, finally resulting in surgery on October 4. In the meantime, she lost surprisingly to Nicole Bradtke of Australia in a Fed Cup match on clay before winning the tournament in San Diego and the tournament in Toronto in preparation for the US Open. She won there, beating Helena Swikova comfortably in the final after eliminating Sabatini in a 3-set quarter-final. She won the tournament in Leipzig yet again the day before her foot operation, losing only 2 games to Jana Novotná in the final. Graf lost to Conquita Martinez in her return tournament a month later in Philadelphia. However, she finished her year with a highlight, winning her first Virginia Slims Championship since 1989 by beating ๊gʁaf Vicario in the final despite needing painkillers for a back injury. 1994, seemingly free of injury for the first time in years, Graf began the year by winning the Australian Open, where she defeated ๊gʁaf Vicario in the final with a loss of only 2 games. She then won her next 4 tournaments easily. In the Miami final, she lost her first set of the Euro to Natasha Zvereva after winning 54 consecutive sets. In the Hamburg final, she lost for the first time in 1994 after 36 consecutive match victories, losing to ๊gʁaf Vicario in 3 sets. She then won her 8th German Open, but there were signs that her form was worsening as she almost lost to Julie Haylard in a quarter-final. Back-to-back losses followed. Graf lost to Mary Pierce in a French Open semi-final, 6-2, 6-2, and followed that with a first-round straight sets loss at Wimbledon to Lori McNeil, her first loss in a first-round Grand Slam tournament in 10 years. Graf still managed to win San Diego the following month but aggravated a long-time back injury in beating ๊gʁaf Vicario in the final. She then began to wear a back brace and was unsure about playing the US Open but elected to play while receiving treatment and stretching for 2 hours before each match. She made it to the final and took the first set there against ʻscħz Vicario Sanchez Vicario's last victory over Graf. Her back injury, however, flared up and she lost the next 2 sets. She took the following 9 weeks off, returning only for the Virginia Slims Championships where she lost to Pierce in a quarter-final. 1995, injury kept Graf out of the Australian Open. She came back to beat ʻscħz Vicario in the finals of both the French Open and Wimbledon. The US Open was Monica Seals's first Grand Slam event since the 1993 attack. Seals and Graf met in the final, with Graf winning 7-6, 0-6, 6-3. Graf then capped the year by beating countrywoman Anke Huber in a 5-set final at the season ending in 2 hours 46 minutes. WTA Tour Championships. In personal terms, 1995 was a difficult year for Graf, as she was accused by German authorities of tax evasion in the early years of her career. In her defense, she stated that her father Peter was her financial manager, and all financial matters relating to her earnings at the time had been under his control. As a result, Peter was sentenced to 45 months in jail. He was eventually released after serving 25 months. Prosecutors dropped their case against Steffi Graf in 1997, when she agreed to pay a fine of 1.3 million Deutsche Marks to the government and an unspecified charity. 1996, Graf again missed the Australian Open because of injury and then successfully defended the 3 Grand Slam titles she won the year before. In a close French Open final, Graf again overcame ʻscħz Vicario, taking the third set 10-8. Steffi then had straight sets wins against ʻscʁf in the Wimbledon final and Monica Seals in the US Open final. Graf also won her 5th and final Chase Championships title with a 5-set win over Martina Hingis. She was unable to participate in the 1996 Summer Olympics in Atlanta because of an injured left knee. Final years on the tour, 1997–99, the last few years of Graf's career were beset by injuries, particularly to her knees and back. She lost the world number 1 ranking to Martina Hingis and failed to win a Grand Slam title for the first time in 10 years in 1997. That year Graf lost in the 4th round of Australian Open in straight sets 2-6, 5-7 to Amanda Kueser. After several months injury layoff, Graf returned to play in the German Open in Berlin in front of the home crowd and had the worst defeat of her career in the quarter-final, when Amanda Kueser beat her in just 56 minutes 6-0, 6-1. In the French Open Graf was again beaten by Amanda Kueser in straight sets 6-1, 6-4. Graf then skipped Wimbledon and US Open due to injury. After missing almost half of the tour in 1998, Graf defeated world number 2 Hingis and world number 1 Lindsay Davenport en route to the Philadelphia title. At the first round of the season-ending Chase Championships, Graf defeated world number 3 Jana Novotná. At the beginning of 1999 Graf played the warm-up event to the Australian Open in Sydney. She defeated Serena Williams in the second round and Venus Williams in the quarter-finals before losing to Lindsay Davenport in the semi-final. Graf then went on to reach the quarter-finals of the Australian Open before losing to Monica Seals 7-5, 6-1. In Indian Wells, 1999 Graf lost to Serena Williams 3-6, 6-3, 5-7. At the 1999 French Open, Graf reached her first Grand Slam final in 3 years and fought back from a set and twice from a breakdown in the second set to defeat the top-ranked Hingis in 3 sets for a memorable victory. Graf also became the first player in the Open era to defeat the first, second, and third-ranked players in the same Grand Slam tournament by defeating second-ranked Davenport in the quarter-finals and third-ranked Monica Seals in the semi-finals. Graf said after the final that it would be her last French Open, fueling speculation about her retirement. Graf then reached her 9th Wimbledon singles final, losing to Davenport 6-4, 7-5. In mixed doubles at Wimbledon, Graf partnered with John McEnroe, but she withdrew at the semi-final stage to protect her knee in advance of the singles final. In August 1999, after retiring from a match in San Diego, Graf announced her retirement from the women's tour. She was ranked world number 3 at that time. Graf said, "I have done everything I want to do in tennis. I feel I have nothing left to accomplish." The weeks following Wimbledon, in 1999, weren't easy for me. I was not having fun anymore. After Wimbledon, for the first time in my career, I didn't feel like going to a tournament. My motivation wasn't what it was in the past. 2005, Graf competed in one tie of World Team Tennis on the Houston Wranglers team. Graf was beaten in 2 out of 3 matches. Each match was 1 set. Graf lost her singles match to Elena Ļikovtseva 5-4. She teamed with Ansley Cargill in women's doubles against Anna Kournikova and Ļikovtseva but lost 5-2. She was successful in the mixed doubles match, however. Graf completely ruled out a return to professional tennis. It was a lot of fun. It was not as I expected it to be. 2009, Graf played a singles exhibition match against Kim Clijsters and a mixed doubles exhibition alongside husband Andre Agassi against Tim Henman and Clijsters as part of a test event and celebration for the newly installed roof over Wimbledon Centre Court. She lost a lengthy 1-set singles match to Clijsters and also the mixed doubles. 2010, Graf participated in the World Team Tennis Smash Hits exhibition in Washington, D.C., to support the Elton John AIDS Foundation. She and her husband, Andre Agassi, were on Team Elton John who competed against Team Billie Jean King. Graf played in the celebrity doubles, women's doubles, and mixed doubles before straining her left calf muscle and being replaced by Anna Kournikova. Summary of career: Graf won 7 singles titles at Wimbledon, 6 singles titles at the French Open, 5 singles titles at the US Open, and 4 singles titles at the Australian Open. Her overall record in 56 Grand Slam events was €282,34. Her career prize money earnings totaled $21,895,277. Her singles win-loss record was €900,115. She was ranked world number 1 for 186 consecutive weeks and a record total 377 weeks overall. Graf also won 11 doubles titles. Career statistics: Key, 1 tournament. Or reached final. Semi-final. Quarter-final. Round 4, 3, 2, 1. Competed at a round-robin stage. Lost in qualification round. Absent from tournament event. Played in a Davis Cup zonal group or playoff. Won a bronze, silver or gold medal at the Olympics. A downgraded Masters Series/1000 tournament. Or a tournament that was not held in a given year. To avoid confusion and double counting, these charts are updated either at the conclusion of a tournament, or when the player's participation in the tournament has ended. Records: these records were attained in Open era of tennis. Records in bold indicate peerless achievements. Playing style: the main weapons in Graf's game were her powerful inside-out forehand drive, which earned her the moniker Fra Currency U-line forehand, and her intricate footwork. She often positioned herself in her backhand corner, and although this left her forehand wide open and vulnerable to attack, her court speed meant that only the most accurate shots wide to her forehand caused any trouble. Graf also had a powerful backhand drive but over the course of her career tended to use this less frequently, opting more often for her very effective backhand slice. In baseline rallies, she used the slice almost exclusively. Her accuracy with the slice, both cross-court and down the line, and her ability to skid the ball and keep it low, enabled her to use it as an offensive weapon to set the ball up for her forehand putaways. She built her powerful and accurate serve up to 180 km/h, making it one of the fastest serves in women's tennis, and was a capable volleyer. Personal life: in the 1990s, she briefly dated fellow German tennis player Alexander Mrons and had a long-term relationship with racing car driver Michael Bartels. She married Andre Agassi on October 22, 2001, with only their mothers as witnesses. They have 2 children, son Jaden Gill and daughter Giselle. The Graf Agassi family lives in Las Vegas. Stefanie Graf's mother and her brother with his 4 children live there too. In 1991, the Steffi Graf Youth Tennis Center in Leipzig was dedicated. She is the founder and chairperson of Children for Tomorrow, a non-profit foundation for implementing and developing projects to support children who have been traumatized by war or other crises. See also: Graf-Navratilova rivalry, Graf-Sabatini rivalry, Graf-Seals rivalry. References. External links: official website, Steffi Graf at the Women's Tennis Association, Steffi Graf at the International Tennis Hall of Fame, Steffi Graf at the Fed Cup, official Wimbledon profile, BBC profile, ESPN biography, Steffi Graf biography, German, Steffi Graf victories.